everyone, it's Bronie here again for another day in Bronie's world, and at Bronie's desk today we have the most favourite guest that I ever have, my dear friend up in the mountains in Colorado, the world famous pharmacist Ben, and he has to leave a little bit earlier today, so I'm not going to mess around anymore. I'm going to hand it over to you because we are talking about...
What are we talking about?
We're talking about the yogurt. The
Yogurt. Well, what do you want to know about yogurt?
Oh, I sent you the thing.
You sent me a note that said some gal uses yogurt.
Yeah, it's
She wants to know what I think about it. And I said to you, what does that mean?
The l.ruterie.
Yeah, l.ruterie.
Yes.
But I'm not really.
Well,
clear on what you want to know.
You know what, Ben?
Yeah.
You talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. Whatever you have to say is absolutely
nice little deflection there. So anyway, this gal, is she on the call?
No, she always watches them after.
Okay, gotcha. So this gal, who is her? What's her name? I don't see her name.
Wendy. I didn't
Wendy.
say her name.
Yeah, she makes her own yogurt, which is great. Yogurt is really a power food. There's certain foods that I call power foods. They're so packed with nutritional value relative to their calories or relative to the amount that you have to eat, we'll say, that I consider them to be power foods. Algae, for example, is a power food. Relative to the amount of gram for gram, let's say, it's packed with nutrition. Eggs are a power food. Fish is a power food. Yeast is a power food. Whey protein is a power food. These are foods that you don't have to eat a lot of, but you get a lot of nutritional value. As opposed to, like, say, pasta, which has very little nutritional value per gram for gram. And even if you ate a whole bunch of it, you wouldn't get a lot of nutritional value from pasta or from rice or from white bread, or certainly, obviously, that goes without saying, from desserts. So the more power foods you ingest, the less work your body will have to do in order to get nutrition. And so you want to use as many power foods as you can. You want your daily intake of foods to be composed of as many power foods as possible. Nutrient density is the key. And yogurt is a classic example of a nutrient-dense substance. And even better, the nutrients in yogurt are somewhat rare because much of the nutritional value comes from fermentation, which is the action of bacteria upon sugars, upon carbohydrates. So bacteria digest the carbohydrates and they proliferate. And not only do you get the benefits of these easy to digest carbohydrates, but you get the benefits of the bacteria. And the bacteria are cells, so you get vitamins and you get fatty acids and you get protein from these bacteria, not to mention the fact that the bacteria are making the nutrients in the milk or the yogurt, the dairy, number one, more digestible. So if you have problems with dairy, a lot of folks don't have problems with fermented dairy, and the proteins and the nutrients in the dairy are easier for the body to access. So this one gal, Wendy, wanted to know about l.ruterie, a bacteria called l.ruterie. There's hundreds, maybe thousands of different good bacteria. In fact, it's kind of interesting because when people hear the word bacteria, we immediately think of bad guys, germs, right? The vast majority, 95, 96, 97% of the bacteria on planet Earth are your friends. They make vitamins and they digest foods for us. And from the environmental perspective, they detoxify the environment. They're really good, they're really our best friends in a lot of ways. Certainly in the body, the microbiome is your body's best health friends. There are about 3 or 4% of bacteria that cause problems, and those are the ones that get all the press, but the vast majority of bacteria are friendly bacteria. So-called good bacteria, l.ruterie is one of those. Also, sometimes bacteria are friendly or helpful, we'll say, in parts of the body, but when they escape to other parts of the body, they become problematic. For example, E. coli. Most people have heard of E. coli as a problem, right? Well, the problem with E. coli is when it gets outside your intestine. In your intestine, E. coli is a good bacteria, but when it gets outside your intestine, that's when people run into problems with infections. You're not supposed to have E. coli outside your intestine. And in fact, the most likely source of E. coli is a stool, feces, because it's outside the intestine. In the intestine, E. coli is a member of the good bacteria family. It's outside the intestine that you run into problems with E. coli, and we find this with a lot of bacteria. They're good inside when they're in their right home, right part of the body. But when they leave that part of the body and go to another part of the body, that's when they become problematic. H. pylori is another one of those bacteria that is perfectly fine inside the digestive intestine, I should say. But when it gets into the stomach, it can be a problem. So ingesting bacteria is a tried and true longevity strategy, and I should say bacterial byproducts, fermented foods. And there used to be a commercial here in the United States where they showed people climbing a mountain, people who were in their 80s and 90s climbing mountains and hauling logs up the mountain, and they were 80 years old, 90 years old, and there was a commercial for Dannon yogurt. Now, it turns out that while yogurt is potentially a power food, the way most of us are ingesting yogurt is not necessarily powerful because that yogurt is pasteurized, which means the enzymes are all the wonderful enzymes that are produced by the bacteria are all killed because enzymes are very sensitive to heat. The vitamins, many of the vitamins are killed, and other nutrients, and the proteins can be denatured as well. And then also, a lot of times these grocery store yogurts like Chobani and Dannon and that kind of stuff, they have lots of sugar because yogurt tends to be very tart. That tartness, by the way, is the end result of acids that are produced by the bacteria. And because people don't necessarily like tarts, they sweeten the yogurt, or they'll put sugared fruit in it. So just because something's yogurt doesn't make it healthy. And don't be deceived by that. The best kind of yogurt that you can eat is goat yogurt and unflavored goat yogurt. I don't know if you can find that in Australia or New Zealand, but we have it here in the United States. Unflavored goat yogurt is the best yogurt and it's delicious too, by the way. It's nice and smooth and creamy. And it makes smoothies really delicious, and that's the best yogurt you can eat. And I'm a big fan of yogurt as long as it's unsweetened, plain, and ideally goat yogurt. And that's my take on yogurt. And by the way, yogurt's great for your skin too. If you put it right on your skin, the acids in yogurt can be very stimulating for building connective tissue, for exfoliating the skin, and even ultimately, if you do it regularly, can even help lighten dark spots. Although in the long run, dark spots are caused hormonally, and you're not going to get rid of them permanently. But topically, you can brighten the skin, lighten dark spots, and improve the prognosis of aging skin and also acne-prone skin, by the way, using topical yogurt, which is an interesting little benefit to yogurt, particularly, obviously, unflavored yogurt. You don't want the sugars on your skin, but the unflavored plain yogurt. Let's see what else I can tell you about yogurt. Yogurt is also good to put on other foods. It'll help you digest other proteins. So if you put yogurt on meats, for example, the enzymes can help break up the proteins in meats, make them easier to digest. So yogurt can actually be an additive to other foods and make them easier for the body to process, particularly if you want to make sure you put the yogurt on raw or uncooked, unheated. Remember, heat's the enemy of the enzymes in the yogurt. So yogurt is one of the power foods, and congrats to this gal. Yogurt, by the way, is very easy to make. All you got to do is get some starter acid and put it into milk, and basically that's it. And you can make your own yogurt. And I think that's what this gal must be doing. It doesn't really say what she's doing, but she says she's making herself. I think it's cured. She says it cured her itchiness on her forearms, and that's very possible. Itchiness on the forearms can be caused by intestinal disturbances. In fact, anytime you have a skin problem, like with all health issues, but especially on the skin, you want to think about the intestine. The skin and the intestine have a lot in common. Both have an absorptive nature, and both have a microbiome, and both have cells that divide very rapidly. So skin issues should always be backtracked to the intestine, and it makes perfect sense that this Wendy gal would be noticing that her itchiness improved, her skin itchiness improved when she ingested yogurt.
I didn't think about actually putting it topically on the skin. So
yes, it's a
maybe
great.
you put it all over you and then have a shower and wash it off.
Absolutely, you can do it head to toe. Have your husband do it head to toe. It can be fun, Bronie. And then
he's not with me at the moment because
what's that? He's not with you. Well, Well, give him a little phone call. Tell him what's in store for him when you return. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know about anyone else.
There's
I
a
don't know. I haven't seen any the go to yogurt where I live, but
well, even regular yogurt topically on your feet, on your heels, on areas where you have hard, dry skin. Give yourself a foot massage with yogurt. Yogurt contains a substance that I don't know most women here in the United States know about. I'm assuming women down under know about alpha hydroxy acids. Have you heard of alpha hydroxy acids, Bronie?
Yeah.
Alpha hydroxy acids are a class of acids that are found in various foods. Milk is one, yogurt, lots of fruits, honey, and the skin. And these alpha hydroxy acids have really, really neat skin properties when applied topically. You've probably heard of glycolic acid, maybe. Have you heard of that, glycolic acid?
Yes.
Glycolic acid is the classic alpha hydroxy acid. Lactic acid is another alpha hydroxy acid. And lactic acid is the one that you'll find in yogurt and milk, for that matter. Cleopatra famously used to bathe in sour milk for the lactic acid, and that's one of the ways that you can get lactic acids from sour milk, but also from yogurt. Yogurt being a source of lactic acid from the lactobacillus bacteria. You may have heard of that, Lactobacillus acidophilus, for example, that make lactic acid. And by the way, while we're on the topic, ingesting yogurt with your meals will help you if you're dealing with problems with low stomach acid. Ingesting yogurt with your meals will help activate either your own natural enzymes or digestive enzyme supplements. If you're taking digestive enzymes, using yogurt with your digestive enzymes or with your meals will help improve digestion by virtue of the low pH, the acid that you're getting from the yogurt.
Wow. And I was listening to, when you said that I actually used the Greek yogurt, plain
Greek yogurt. I don't know exactly what the difference between Greek yogurt is, but I know a lot of the Greek yogurt has flavor, or is kind of sugared. It's sweet.
The one that I actually buy is made in Tasmania.
Okay.
And
I don't know what makes it Greek yogurt. Do you?
I think it's the process that they do, but the plain one doesn't have sugars in it.
Yeah, you want to look for the ones without the sugar.
So I checked that all out. Whereas their flavored ones, their flavored Greek yogurt does, but I'm guessing from the fruit, but that's beside the point. But I thought that was very interesting what you were saying about the what is it? You said in the intestines. It's the E. coli is meant to be in the intestines, but if it gets out,
yes,
it's not.
That's where you run into problems.
It reminded me of weeds. A plant is only weeds. A plant is only a weed when it's in a place it shouldn't be.
That interesting? A weed is like, otherwise it's an herb. They call it an herb. But if it's growing out of the cracks in your sidewalk, then it's a weed.
Yeah. Interesting,
that's
isn't
good.
it?
That is interesting. Exactly. I used to have a friend.
That was a good analogy of what you said. I think that's the first thing that popped in my head. So
yeah, that's interesting. I had a friend who was an herbalist, and she used to point out all these things growing out of the cracks in the sidewalk. She'd be like, "That's great for your digestive system. That's great for your respiratory system. That's great for menopause." And they look like weeds growing out of the sidewalk to me. And she was an herbalist, so she knew that they were actually medicines. I always thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, well, see, you probably wouldn't eat the weeds growing out of the sidewalk because they've probably got poison on them.
Probably they're sprayed, but theoretically, if you could just cut them and kind of tincture them, they make great medicine if they weren't sprayed.
Yeah, so look, it's amazing what different foods we have. But I wanted to ask you then.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I think she was talking about the I've forgotten what now, the microbiome. Yogurt helps the microbiome. So I sort of kind of thought, well, there's a lot of people don't eat yogurt and or can't make their own, because the key is making it yourself, is from what I see. But anyway, so for those who don't like yogurt or can't make their own, what are other things that you would suggest we could do?
Well,
to help the same sort of problems.
The reason people don't like yogurt or foods that contain these bacteria is because of the acid, the tartness that's associated with it. Kimchi. What's another one I'm thinking of here? Kimchi, natto. I don't know if you ever heard of natto. That's a fermented soy product. Tofu. It has sort of flavor to it that some people find unpleasant. The best way to get around that is just straight probiotics, nightly essence. If you use your nightly essence, you're going to get many of the same benefits that you would from yogurt. In fact, you might get more because there's so many different types of bacteria in the nightly essence. You won't get the protein, and you won't get the easy to access nutrients from the yogurt. Yogurt has other nutrients, B vitamins, for example, amino acids, protein, that kind of thing. You won't get those, but you'll get the bacteria. And it's really supplementing with bacteria is not a bad. It's pretty a good idea for everybody, no matter what. Even if you're don't have a full-blown health challenge. Certainly, if you have an immune health challenge, or if you have a digestive problem, or if you have a skin problem, probiotics can help. That being said, some people will actually take a probiotic supplement and their symptoms will get worse. I don't know if you ever noticed that.
Yes,
People will take probiotics and they'll actually have problems. That's a sign that you have too much bacteria in your intestine anyway. And that's a condition called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And so if you do notice that you take probiotics and your symptoms get worse, your skin gets worse, your immune problems get worse, your digestive issues get worse, that might be a sign that you're dealing with SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. In which case, you want to kind of you want to make sure you're killing off you're killing off the excess bacteria, and you're not eating foods that cause them to proliferate. So there are SIBO diets, particularly ones that involve the FODMAPs, which we've talked about, the sugars that feed the bacteria. And interestingly, these kinds of folks can't use a lot of fiber either, because fiber will also feed the bacteria. So if you're dealing with SIBO, it's a little bit tricky, and that's where your I-26 comes in. I-26 helps kill off those excess bacteria, those extra bacteria, and then also you can use things like neem oil, tea tree oil, peppermint oil, oregano oil, essential oils in general, or also herbs, oregano, sage, thyme. These herbal tinctures or herbal capsules or essential oils from herbs, they have antibacterial properties. Now, if you go to a doctor and the doctor knows about SIBO, not all of them do, but if you go to a doctor who knows about SIBO, you'll typically get an antibiotic to kill the bacteria, which is not a great idea because of the indiscriminate nature that the killing effect of antibiotics, that the killing of bacteria by antibiotics has. So I'm not a big fan of antibiotics. And at the same time, even essential oils and I-26, you got to be a little bit careful. The real story here is that probiotics, the microbiome, intestinal health is going to require a lot of experimentation. Probiotics and intestinal health and bacteria are not the same as vitamins and minerals and amino acids. And you'll notice the Mighty 90 Essential Nutrients doesn't have probiotics in it. And that's because probiotics are not part of the essential spectrum of nutrients. They're living organisms. And when you're dealing with living organisms, it's a little bit tricky. Some people will benefit from some brands or some formulations. Other people will not. Some people will have problems taking certain brands. They'll notice, as I say, their symptoms get worse. Other brands not. There's no real certification, or there's no body that approves. There's no regulating body that approves probiotics. So you don't really know what you're getting with probiotics. Vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and fatty acids are different. Those are regulated. There are ways that you can test for purity with those. Not so with probiotics. In fact, the companies that make probiotics, and there's a lot of them now, are looking to form a regulating body so that consumers can really know what they're getting. As of now, it's somewhat of a wild frontier when it comes to probiotics. And this is why, number one, you want to experiment with different brands and different formulations and different doses. And number two, you want to get as many of your probiotics from foods as possible. And number three, in addition to taking probiotics, you want to use prebiotics, which are substances that feed the probiotics. So it's not just the probiotics that you want, but you want to make sure that you're taking in substances that feed the probiotics. And then also, if you're taking antibiotics intentionally, or if you're taking antibiotics unintentionally, from drinking water, from eating foods, fish or dairy or meat that contains antibiotics, and most antibiotics in our country, probably in your country too, are given to animals, not to people. So the agricultural antibiotics are a huge problem. And even if they're not, the cows are drinking water that contains antibiotics. So, you got to be a little bit careful with the kind of probiotics you're taking. You got to recognize that we're all kind of ingesting antibiotics, whether we're doing it intentionally or not, and that is going to have an impact on your natural probiotics inside your system. And then thirdly, or fourthly, one of the benefits of probiotics is they make something called postbiotics. So you've got prebiotics, which feed the probiotics, which make the postbiotics. And postbiotics are now known to be, or we're starting to know more and more about postbiotics, and you can actually get postbiotic supplements. One of the most important postbiotics, that is substances that's made by bacteria in response to foods, is a fat called butyrate or butyric acid. And you're going to start hearing more and more about this incredible fat, butyric acid. Butyric acid is not only made by bacteria as a postbiotic, but it's also made by our bodies in response to fasting and the ketogenic diet. And butyrate or butyric acid, butyrate they're basically the same thing. They're incredibly valuable for the immune system, for folks who are dealing with any kind of immune problem or inflammatory problem. And they're very important for the brain, for brain health. They're very important for bodybuilders, for building tissue, building muscle. They're anabolic. They help grow tissue. And then they're probably, arguably, the most important molecule for your intestine. And people who have colon cancer are notoriously deficient in butyrate. So using either butyrate supplements or making sure that your intestine is making, your microbiome is healthy, so it's making butyrate is very important. If you want to make your own butyrate, one of the best ways to make your own butyrate is the ketogenic diet and fasting, for that matter. In fact, one of the reasons why fasting makes you feel good mentally and why fasting can kind of make you feel satisfied. A lot of times when you fast, you notice you don't want to eat. I don't know if you ever experienced this. You fast and you don't feel like eating. That's because one of the byproducts of both the ketogenic diet and fasting is butyrate, which in addition to making you feel good, has antidepressant properties and calming properties and sleep-inducing and anti-anxiety properties. It also creates a sense of satisfaction. And so it keeps you from wanting to eat. So butyrate is a postbiotic, one of the most important, maybe the most important of the postbiotics, important for the immune system, for anti-inflammatory benefits, for brain health, for its anabolic benefits, anti-anxiety benefits, sleep benefits, and it's one of the most important molecules you could ever take for intestinal health, including for preventing colon cancer.
Wow, that was a bit impactful.
Is that good?
And all that
Butyrate?
started from yoga.
There was a molecule. Tell you a funny story here. In the 90s, there was a molecule that became very, very popular here in the United States. And this was a molecule that was the most incredible sleep aid you could ever take. I mean, you could take a teaspoon, it was a liquid. You could take a teaspoon of this stuff and you would fall asleep. You would fall asleep in, oh, hang on a second here. Hey, Renee, I'll call you back in just half hour or so. Half hour. Yes. Okay. You could take a teaspoon of this stuff, and I'm telling you, in 5 minutes, you would not only fall asleep, you'd fall asleep like dead asleep for about 2 hours, and then you'd wake up completely refreshed, like the best sleep you ever had. And you all 1 teaspoon, and you couldn't even control it. It would knock you out. And then the same molecule was a bodybuilding supplement, so it would grow muscle. Right? So it would help you fall asleep and grow muscle. And bonus, it was the best libido aphrodisiac you could ever take. You would do this stuff, and I mean, you would be all over it, if you know what I'm saying here.
Okay, so you haven't sleep for 2 hours, you build your muscles, and then you
exactly right, exactly, and it was cheap. I used to make it in my lab, and then all of a sudden it became illegal. You couldn't have it anymore. You couldn't make it anymore. Apparently, it was being used as a date rape drug. So people would actually stick it in people's drinks, and because it would knock them out and it would make it was an aphrodisiac, it became a date rape drug. So they made it illegal. But anyway, this stuff was butyrate. It was a form of butyrate called gamma hydroxybutyrate, and the initials were GHB. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, GHB. But now you can still get it on a prescription. But for a while in the 90s, it was extremely popular. We'll leave it at that, as you can imagine. There's another derivative of butyrate called HMB, hydroxymethylbutyrate, and that's still used today in gyms as a bodybuilding supplement, and it's a derivative of butyrate. The very same stuff that's made by the bacteria in your microbiome, or that's made by your body when you fast or when you use the ketogenic diet, or that you can buy as supplements. Butter gets its name, butter, from the butyric acid content in butter. And it turns out that butter is one of the best sources of natural butyric acid that you could ever take. And butyric acid is found in dairy products. Butyric acid is made by bacteria that are in cows' stomachs that help the cows make milk. So it turns out that butter and dairy products are nature's best sources of natural butyrate.
Wow.
But you're going to start to hear more and more.
I told you butter was better.
Butter is better. Butter is some good stuff.
I'm a
Everybody
dairy
loves butter.
farmer's daughter, so yeah. Oh dear. Oh, Ben, that's been an amazing call today. And I know you have to leave early.
I do have to leave early today, but if there's any questions out there,
I was just going to ask, has anyone got any questions? If so, quickly unmute yourself. And
Can I ask a question, please, Bronie?
Yes,
of course.
Ben, with legumes, as in beans, are they?
I'm sorry.
With legumes, as in beans? Can you hear
leggings?
Legumes, beans.
Oh, legumes. Okay. What a cute accent you have there. Legumes.
Well, however you say
beans. Yes, legumes.
Are they a good thing to eat or a bad thing or a dangerous
That's
thing?
not that cut and dry. Legumes are a true power food. They're one of nature's best foods, but they're also, interestingly, one of the most poisonous foods you could ever eat. In fact, the CIA and the KGB are famous for using an extract from legumes to put on the tip of umbrellas. I don't know if you ever heard this, how they touch you with the tip of an umbrella and they could kill you. There was a famous case in England where a KGB spy, killed somebody by touching them with the tip of an umbrella. They put this extract of beans on the umbrella. The extract of beans is called ricin. And this ricin is found in beans, legumes. Legumes are extremely medicinal, and there's a fine line between medicine and poison, as you probably know. And this can create problems. That being said, they are super packed with really hard to find plant nutrients, specifically proteins. Plants are not great sources of proteins. There are some, but most of the really good sources of plant proteins are from legumes, beans and soy being a bean. And so legumes do contain wonderful nutrients, but they're also medicinal / toxic. And so some people have a problem with them. Not everybody does. If you sprout your beans, you deactivate the poisons. So if you're going to do your beans, you want to be perfectly and take advantage of the beans without getting the problems with the toxins. You can soak the beans and sprout the beans, and that will deactivate some of those toxins. That being said, most people are not going to have a problem with beans, but some people will. And beans can be especially problematic for the skin and for the joints. And as a guy in the skincare business, I can't tell you how many times I've seen acne, really, really bad acne, disappear when people lay off the burritos and the beans in general. Because beans are a lot of vegetarians are under the illusion that because they're vegetarians, they can eat whatever they want as long as it's not meat or dairy, and that's not true. Beans can create a lot of problems for the immune system and for the skin and for the digestive system for that matter. So it's not as easy as are they good or are they bad. They're good in the sense that they got lots of wonderful nutrients, B vitamins and minerals and proteins, but they're also can be problematic for people because of the so-called lectins, Lectins, that they contain, as well as the medicinal / toxic compounds.
As a way to get rid of the lectins, can you boil them?
Boiling.
Soak them,
yeah.
boil them, and then run off that and all that black stuff. Is that the lectins?
Yes. Now there may be some that remain, but most, if not all of them, will come off.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Beans are seeds, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, a bean is a seed, and nature does not want you to eat its seeds.
Yep.
Nature guards its seeds very closely. It doesn't want people eating its seeds. Why? Well, if you eat the seeds, you're not going to have nature. So nature, many poisons, small concentrations of poisons, not like you're going to kill yourself with them, but nature's poisons are found in seeds. I don't know if you heard, if you ever had, you know, here in the United States, women, mothers are famous for saying to their kids, don't eat those apple seeds or don't eat the watermelon seeds. You know,
Yes, I've heard that.
that's because the seeds contain these compounds that will poison the eater of the seeds. Now, human beings are big, so we don't really have to worry about them, but the poisons aren't made necessarily for humans. They're made for rabbits and for squirrels and for rodents and for insects. And so they're a very small amount of poisons. Now, to complicate things a little bit of poison is a good thing. So some of the poisons that we ingest from seeds are actually stimulating for our immune system. You know, under the rubric, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So the toxins in these seeds, the small, very microscopic amount of toxins in the seeds can actually be beneficial. And what we call phytonutrients, many times are plant toxins that are made to kill predators of the plant. For example, phytoestrogens. You may have heard the term phytoestrogens. Women are sometimes told to eat phytoestrogens from soy and from other herbs like clover and damiana and vitex. And these phytoestrogens, they're not there to make women have an easier menopause. Those phytoestrogens are there to give the rabbit birth control pills. So when the rabbit eats the alfalfa, it won't make any more baby rabbits. Isn't that funny how plants are, how smart plants are? They're thinking one generation ahead. They're making birth control. And so, you know, that's an example of how clever plants are. And that's an example of how these what we call phytonutrients are really there to be protective against predation, against predators who would ingest the plants.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
So if we don't want to get pregnant, we have to have lots of alfalfa.
Well, if you don't want to get pregnant, you need a lot of, yes, that's right. Now it turns out there's not a lot of estrogen, it's very weak estrogen, but the principle is, yes, the principle is true. There's also blood thinners in a lot of these, they call them, have you ever heard of the drug Coumadin?
Yeah.
Coumadin is a blood thinner, very famous blood thinner. It's a brand name for a blood thinner, and it gets its name as a derivative of coumarin. And coumarin is a natural plant molecule that's found in alfalfa and other herbs that helps thin the blood. And the reason it's in the alfalfa is to kill the animals, the rabbits, that would eat the alfalfa. Their blood will thin so much that they'll hemorrhage to death and the alfalfa will survive. So there's this kind of chemical warfare that plants have with their predators, and the substances that we call phytonutrients are really derivatives of these, are really examples of these poisons that we can benefit from using the rubric. A little poison is actually stimulating, or what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
So we can put some alfalfa out for the mice that come and invade our home.
Yes, that's a natural way to kill mice. Yeah, it's not that strong, it's not that powerful, but yeah, that is one thing that
makes them go outside because they're cold.
What's that? Maybe don't know enough about mice to know, but that's the mechanism of action.
Well, I remember when my mother was alive. She had heart bypass, and they put her on warfarin, and she couldn't cope with it. She just stopped taking it because it made her too cold. So it made her too cold. It made her cold. Yeah, warfarin, and so she gave it to us because we were helping this old historic home get rid of the rats in it. So my husband put them down the walls of the thing, and it is rat poison. The rats took off real quick.
Yeah, it's rat poison. That's one of the ingredients in rat poison is, I think, warfarin. I think, and that's kind of interesting when you think about it.
And my mother wasn't impressed, but anyway. So,
Ben, just one little bit. Yeah. Is the legumes, are they good for the microbiome?
Oh yeah, absolutely, especially fermented. Especially if you ferment them, absolutely.
Fermented. Oh.
Yeah, there's a lot of fiber. Anything that's got fiber in it's going to feed the microbiome, and legumes are very rich in fiber, soluble and insoluble fiber.
Fermented legumes, okay.
Yep.
Okay, well, I know you have to go in a minute.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. God bless everybody.
We will, and hope everything works out with home then, and not so much noise. But anyway, as I ask you all nicely here, don't run away yet, Ben. as I ask you all nicely here in Bronie's world, is to stay safe, stay informed, be empowered, but do not live in fear, my friends. And when you're fermenting your own yogurt, then you too, and bathing it, oh, I'm going to try that, and you too will be powerful, beautiful, brilliant, and most definitely very brave. God bless you all. Catch you again tomorrow here in Bronie's world. And thank you, Ben, very much for your coming to us.
Thank you, Ben, and
Thanks,
thank you,
Ben.
Bronie.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ben's gone. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, everyone.